What's up, everybody? I'm really excited because today I'm with my buddy, colleague, Chaz'men Williams-Ali, and we're going to be listening to Sonic 2, the entirety of Sonic 2. The internet hates me. I'm about to freeze a couple times. It's going to be really fun. Disregard the face. I'm really excited because, Chaz, you said that Sonic Adventure 2... Well, is this Sonic Adventure 2?
Yeah, I think it's Sonic Adventure 2, but everyone just kind of referred to it as Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
You said that this game really changed the way that you think about music and stuff. Do you mind just really quickly for the audience, what about Sonic's music and specifically Sonic 2 changed the way that you view video game music?
The first system I had was NES, and so I remember those old Punch Out games, the original Mario Brothers games, and you had the drums specifically, because my dad's a drummer. I come from a family of musicians. You had these you know what I mean? It didn't sound like drums. It sounded like digital animation. And Sonic 1 had some good music, and the Genesis, when it moved up to 16-bit, it was the quality was just the graphics were just that much better, and the music was just that much better. But Sonic 2, I remember the first track I put that we have on our playlist today is the Power Up, when you get the stars and you're invincible. And it starts with this drum lick that is so nasty that my dad actually sat down at the drum set and started to play it. He goes, "I'm gonna have to keep that." You know what I mean? And he started to use that in gigs and stuff. He's like, "That's a good lick," and so he started to play it. And that's when I started to realize music is music. Even the music from video games is still usable music. It's still good stuff. And also, this game was the first game that I remember bobbing my head to the music. I was a kid and I was playing, but I remember some of these tracks, I'm bobbing my head. And over the years, I had a group of friends growing up, and I remember my buddy Joe, who's also a hell of a drummer. We came up on Sonic, and then we just sat down next to each other, couch co-op, and beat the game. But we would always run to a corner where there was nothing and just vibe out on the music for 3 or 4, because it's on the loop. And we just vibe out until we get to the end of the loop, and then we beat the game. You know what I mean? And it's the tracks are good, and maybe it's because I played it so much, but they all sound like they're trying to convey what the map is, which I think wasn't always the case. Mario, I always felt especially in the old school Mario games, it was there was a happy and a scary. It was all the maps above ground were one thing, and then the underground was one thing, and then sometimes you might get a flying map or a water map, and it was But this one, every map had a theme. You go through the Vegas theme, and in the Vegas one, we'll talk about it. You get this almost kind of jazzy Sinatra vibe, and you know what I mean. And I'm okay, so it's almost like film scoring a game. And this was in 92, 93. You know what I mean?
That's what's crazy. I know.
They're ahead of the game.
I've actually been saying this quite a bit, and every time I listen to a Sonic track, I'm like, holy crap! This is, especially the old school. I'm actually more impressed. I mean, the modern Sonic Frontiers with this sort of indie punk rock sound is really cool too. Don't get me wrong; they're absolute bangers. But there's something about the Genesis sound font and the way that the music sounds. That the crunch on the Genesis is it's good. It's weird how because I grew up with SNES, so for me, my sound font, I grew up with the SNES sound font, but to hear it this, it's something else. Here's us reacting to, me reacting to, and Chaz guiding me through Sonic 2's soundtrack. Really hyped about this. All right, let's dive in here. So this first one is called what? Mega Drive version? The Sonic the Hedgehog 2 Power Up.
The Power Up. This is the Power Up.
Yeah, that's cool. It's so short, isn't it? Well, you tell me about this. I mean, tell me what do you love about that? Obviously, the lick.
first of all, you gotta understand that like that's the power up, right? So it's only supposed like it only happens until it runs out. So it's just on a loop. But like I said, that's the one that my dad heard the drum lick and was like, hold on. Okay. So then it has this almost this like churchy, like this black churchy like vibe, this like hard backbeat on it that is just relentlessly energetic, which I think is like a theme of all Sonic games, right? It's like it's relentlessly energetic.
yeah.
There's no pause in it. It's like run as fast as you can. And then you have this like super complicated rhythms, which is a theme I think through this whole thing. You have this like almost this hemiola da 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 da, and the tension builds through the harmony, and it's like it has no reason to go that hard for like 15 seconds of gameplay. You know what I mean? It's like somebody put a lot of work into being like, this is gonna slap, and I'm like, it was. And it brings back nostalgia for me, obviously. But, like, it made you want to run. It made you feel like, because that backbeat was just going. You're like, nothing can stop me. Kill as many guys as I can on my way to the finish line. Get all the rings. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's really the thing that really stands out to me the most about Sonic is just the sheer confidence that you hear in every single track. Like, there's like other songs obviously that have more nuance and stuff, but in general, like especially with this style, there's so much elegant chaos I think that comes to Sonic. And also Sonic, like Sonic's also such like a bright sunny day, like there's a warmth about Sonic as a character that I think comes across in this music so well. And even that, like, you're right, like the percussion is so cool, and the way that it kicks in and then you're like you go, you know what I mean? And that's I don't know, I think that's like such a fun part about like in opera, or like when we're singing and stuff too, like it always feels good to sing something that has like a fast rhythm, you know what I mean? Or like Absolutely. You're singing like a Duke of Mantua or something, and you're singing like La Donna Mo, like just like here we go, you know what I mean? Like,
not to be all boosh, but like I just saw Trovatore at the Met, right?
Oh,
and when that cavaletta kicks in, it goes
I know.
You're like, let's go, you know what I mean? Like, let's go. It's so good.
It's such a human vibe,
forward motion. So the next one is Chemical Plant Zone.
Oh God, I hate Chemical Plant, man.
This is like the second map, and this is my son's favorite song. I have an 11-year-old.
Is it?
And this is the one that he's like, oh, I love this song. I didn't put Green Hill on there because I think those are kind of like universally beloved, and people kind of know them, like know all the Green Hill ones. But this one is the second map that I was like, oh, this is kind of funky. Let's go.
It does have a bit of stank on it, doesn't it?
It does, right?
I have to say, I don't really like Chemical Plant as a level. Like, it kind of annoys me after Green Hill Zone. I love Green Hill Zone. But, like, Chemical Plant's, like, the first one where you're like, oh, man, I can't, like, I gotta, like, stop and start the water. Ugh.
And the water's all purple, and then it's like, oh, yeah, it was a mess. It was.
And it's the first one where you could, like, die.
Hard.
Yeah, it was hard. But like, so what about Chemical Plant do you think, like, for me, what stands out is the fantastic, like, there's a sort of, like I said, there's, like, a stank to it. There's a real, like, jazz funk sort of, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's very, like, still has energy, but it has, like, a little bit of, like, ooh, watch out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so what do you...
I don't know what you call the opposite of earthy, but it's like the opposite of earthy, which is what you kind of like. You know what I mean? Because the Green Hill is so, like, inviting and like, hey, welcome to our game. And this is kind of like, hey, it is not sweet over here. Like, you know.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of, it's like harsh, it's like sharp angles, because like even the like the rhythm, you have this almost like this shuffle, which is almost this, like, you know, 12/8 like shuffle, like the subdivision is a triplet, not to get all super technical, but like, you know what I mean? And then this almost organ sound underneath, it's like a da da da. And then the, like, buzz. Those are, like, organs. And from the very beginning, you get this, like, I think it's probably the best slap bass you can get from a 16-bit game. Yeah. You know? Like, it starts to get the... And it, like, pedals on the minor. It's like, it's just, like, it's funky. And then it has, like, sections to a repeat song, you know what I mean? You have basically like 3 sections. You have to, like, break down. Yeah. You have to, like, vamp at the end when it goes that. Yeah. You know what I mean? And even to like the detail that I love is even on all that stuff. You know, I don't know how much, like, synthetic keyboard you play, but there's a little, like, bar that can, like, you can, like, add vibrato to it. And they're, like, adding vibrato to some of this stuff. Like, it's like almost like simulating like a horn section. I'm like, dude, that's just like chef's kiss. It's
amazing too. I mean, you know, you pointed out something earlier, but like also the fact that there's like a natural call and response there with the organ mixed in with the and it, you know, it feels like a back and forth, right? And I guess Chemical Plant, to your point about not being earthy, like there is this sort of like inherent danger in Chemical Plant. Like that's the first time you can, like, I mean, you can die in Green Hill Zone, but you can like really die from the environment with the water and stuff, you know? So it almost feels like it's like, I mean, we're just digging, right? Like I have no idea if this is true, but like the balance between the water and the, like, running around, you have the ba ba dum, and then it Sonic's like no ba da ba da ba da ba da, you know what I mean? And then the water or like whatever is like the enemies are like yeah I'm gonna kill you. No I won't. You know what I mean? I think that's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And then like you were talking about, that's the first map in the game where like you have to stop for something to happen. You know, like you're running and you stop for the little elevator to take you up before you jump to the other one, and then it takes you up. But like even through that, you get this like like underneath it that still makes you feel like, I mean, I'm not running, but I'm also not relaxing in this map either. You know what I mean?
Oh, well, that's a misconception about Sonic too. Is that like I think a lot of people think that Sonic. Well, I certainly did, but someone left a comment that was really interesting to me, and they were like, you know, people assume that Sonic is always fast all the time, but that's actually how you make the biggest mistakes, because you have to like think about where you're going next. You can't just like be constantly boosting. This is not how it works. Did not realize that.
In this map particular, especially the second, you know, back then you had like the 1 and 2, like the second level.
Yeah.
On the second one, there's one section where if you do the like, there's like a launch pad that you can get into, but if you allow it to launch you, you will die. So you have to like jump over it and run manually, and then you won't die. You know what I mean? I'm like, that is so, because the idea is to run fast and faster, but like, you know, whoever made that comment is absolutely right. Like there's a strategy to it.
The replayability of these games is like way deeper than a lot of other, certainly at the time, but it's way deeper than even, I just finished Sonic X Shadow Generations, which was really good. And the maps are enormous, and it's like, holy crap, like you could literally spend like an hour just trying to find like the correct route, faster route, the slower route. You know, like there's like 4 different branching paths. I mean, like the branching paths is like a puzzle. It's crazy.
Right. In Sonic 2, I know for sure there's at least 2 or 3 maps where there are multiple ways to get to the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that until I was with my buddy, and he was like, "Oh, I never go that way." And I was like, "What do you mean you never go that way?" You know,
isn't that the way?
Like, exactly. No, like back then, because I'm thinking Mario, where there's the way, and then there's the cheat code. You know, we like run them over the top. But like, there were multiple paths to victory in this game. Like, that's crazy.
I mean, like, that's not something that people readily think about, you know what I mean? But I think it's so cool. And again, I think, like, the music really enhances that experience of, like, painting that picture. And I think, I mean, if we think really, I mean, I keep thinking to this idea of, like, the chemical plant being actually dangerous, where it's not like Studiopolis or, like, whatever, like, you know, the casino area where it's much more brighter and richer, and, you know, Green Hill Zone especially, which is, like, one of my favorites. Like, it's just so warm. I could play Green Hill Zone all day. Like, I love Green Hill Zone. It's such a mood, you know?
It is. It's a vibe. And talk about how this game is so important to me. I'm married into parenthood with my oldest. And when we first got married, he was wanting to get into video games when he was maybe 5 or 6. And I was like, no, you can't play any new games until you've gone through some of these classics. Like, get comfortable with 2 buttons. Absolutely. I was like, get comfortable with 2 buttons before you get 4 buttons. And he would play Green Hill Zone on a loop, and it just warmed my heart. And he told me this summer, when we were, you know, I was working and stuff, he told me this summer, he was like, I beat Mystic Cave, which is the next one on our list. He was like, I finally beat Mystic Cave. And I was like, yes, like, you know what I mean? It's like, this is 30 years after this game came out. And my son is getting the same kind of enjoyment out of this. And he has a Spotify playlist full of all kinds of stuff. And he asked me to put Chemical Plant, Mystic Cave, and there was one other one that one of the, like, special levels. He asked me to put them on his playlist. And so, like, he'll clean his room to this music. And I'm like, that is it. Like, that is it. That's
a multi-generational gaming right there. That is
that's right. That's right.
Let's dive in then into, is it, the next one's Mystic Cave. Let's check out Mystic Cave. I've never heard this, so I'm excited to hear this one. I had heard that before. I heard that my first.
I thought I saw this one on the Sonic video
the
you
first.
did.
Why do you think that sounds like a carnival, like that? Like, it's kind of like a spooky vibe. Do you think because it's like we're in a cave? Like, what's the deal with that?
I think that it's this it's this mystic cave, right? And in the back you have these like clouds, and this one does oddly feel more like organically creepy and not necessarily like angularly creepy as the chemical plant.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think they have like some of the hazards in the game are like shrubs that can take you out, or like lightning bugs. You know what I mean? Like they come and get you. So I think this is kind of Halloween-y. Is the vibe I get from it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like when you get to in Mario, Super Mario World, where you go to the castle and those the first time you see booze, you know, and you get this thing. But it's that vibe, but with funky backbeats. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With this like crazy funky like that's a bass line that if no one knew that it was Sonic, you could write a whole nother hit record off that bass line.
1,000,000%, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just like
I do, yeah.
And you get rid of this like, and then you have this like creepy that like, yeah. This like nice like harmonic minor. You know what I mean? It's like,
and then, the double harmony too. At the that I love the double harmony.
Yes. And then even at the beginning, you know, so you get like and then you have this like counter line that are in third, is which is almost you know what I mean, like spooky, like ghosts flying around. I just think this is so like complex and layered musically for a 16-bit game. Like, how are they doing that? And how did they get those drums to sound that good?
I know. And also the bass. I was listening to the bass line specifically, and it really feels like a dance between the bass line and the like melody. Like, that's the crazy part, is that the rhythm and the melody are like almost at odds, even though we know that they're like specifically batched together on purpose. But like, obviously every melody has rhythm, but for whatever reason, the way that the bass line plays, it almost feels like its own entity mixed in with that like it's wild.
It's like I said, it's complex, it's layered, but like you could isolate each one of these pieces, and I think like each one of the layers of this song, and think like, oh, that's kind of nice. But I don't know, me as a musician, I don't know if I would ever put those on top of each other, especially in that way. And I was like, that whoever like that was killing.
Well, what's cool about you, I mean, like, cause you play drums and piano. I forget. You play a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I play drums. I wanted to be like my dad, so like that was my first instrument was drums, and I play piano. My wife is a pianist. I play at the piano.
It's a distinction.
You know what I mean? Like, I play at the piano. My wife is a pianist.
Play at the piano.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I only ask because it brings like it brings a different energy to like so for me, when I listen to a track, I'm really basing it off of obviously the layering, but then also basing it off of like the emotional intention more so, because that's what I'm really good at. Like, I'm really good at picking up emotional cues, because as you know, in our job, especially as tenors, like, our job is to pick up on subtle emotional, usually because we're heroic leads and stuff. So like, we're looking for like the little nuggets of like what makes something romantic or what makes something, you know, and I'm explaining this to you, but I'm really explaining it to them watching. And so it's like, for you, it must be an interesting leg up to also have this like sort of understanding of rhythm. Which I feel like, so, you know, what's the joke, that the singers don't have rhythm, right? But as I would say you're probably right. If you were like, what's this? I would look at it and I would be like, people. Sometimes I'll be doing a live stream and stuff, and they're like, oh, this is in 6/8. And I'm like, how the fuck? How do you know the meter, bro? Like, I'm over here like just listening to the vibes and like trying to connect it.
It's the vibe. It's the vibe, though. Listen, there's a famous jazz pianist that said he got harassed all the time for not being able to read music, and he said, listen, nobody can hear you read. They can only hear you play.
He said that? That's awesome.
Nobody can hear you read. I was like, that is great.
But that's true. I mean, and so like vibe pieces go so far. Like, it's so interesting when you have like pieces that are fast, slow, whatever. But like, ultimately what matters is like how you connect to it. You know what I mean? Like, whether that's through rhythm, whether it's through whatever. I mean, it's so cool that like Sonic really has, I wish I would unfreeze from that terrible. There you go. Watch me not be frozen in this video, but every time I freeze, I'm like, Jesus Lord, I can see my hairline receding. Listen, I'm lucky to be alive. So my receding hairline. Some people don't get to have a receding hairline, you know?
I'll take it. I'll take it. You know what's funny is later on in the I didn't do these in order of like the playthrough order. These are just kind of like the ones I thought about, because I left a few of them out that I was like, this is kind of repetitive, but it's kind of
Sure.
But later on, there's one, I want to say it's called like Sky Chase Zone or something like that. You talk about the vibe, where it's like it's so chill and relaxing, and so like it still but it still has this like forward motion, but it doesn't seem urgent at all. You know,
that's awesome.
And so that's the thing that you talk about, like trying to find, and I think this game particularly does a good job of like matching the music to the vibe that they're trying to get you to play through that map with, you know?
Yeah, because it has like characterization of Sonic, but then also the world as you're exploring it. It's like both. The rhythm is usually Sonic, but then the world is like the creepy strings or whatever, you know?
And remember that this is the game where we were introduced to Tails for the first time.
That's right.
So a lot of times you have these like double melodies like this one, or you have whatever that I always felt like was like Sonic and Tails together, you know what I mean? Like coming with them, like these counter melodies always kind of felt like that to me, where it was like, okay, yeah, you got Sonic and you got Tails, like you got these like double harmonies, whatever. A lot of things have a call and response. We'll get to them, but you know what I mean? Like,
you're right. Well, speaking of which, let's check out Aquatic Ruin Zone.
Ooh, yeah.
Wow. I did not expect like samba, like samba, what's it? Flamenco, tango, whatever.
And it's still got and it's still got some funk in it too. Like, you know, like that's the thing, is that like it's like there's always like an underlayer of funk in this thing, which I think is why I like gravitate to it so strongly. But the rhythm in this is so complicated. Like, there is so much stuff going on in this. Like, as a drummer, if you sit down and try to play this song, it is not easy. Because you have this, like, which is not hard. It's not easy to do, like, while keeping the, like, pulse on the bass drum and the kicks. Oh, man. And then the hand claps, like, are so
I love
sick.
the hand claps. It's so interesting to me that like you picking up on the funk and the like look at that terrible face I just made. You're picking up on the funk and on the rhythm, whereas like I feel like I'm gravitating towards the melody at all times.
Yeah.
It's amazing how, again, we're talking about layering and how like powerful it can be to. Powerful, it's such a strong word, but you know what I mean, like how we take like a really difficult rhythm and then on top of it throw like a fairly, even though it's jagged and it moves around a lot, there's this like sort of, you know, this melody line that really carries us melodically. We have like some like legit kind of like some legato connective tissue to that melody line. It's so interesting how, again, but like that piece was like vibing is really like the key, I think, of Sonic 2. You know what I mean? It's interesting how it's becoming more and more apparent to me that like, you know what I mean? And then you keep going. It's like so interesting.
And then even in those melodies, you still have those counter lines. There's a
yeah, a lot of call and response. The descending thing. Yeah, I know. You know, God, that's so interesting to me. And it's also because like you would listen to it, and if you're just like passively listening, you're not going to be like, wow, this is really like deep and complex. But then as you like really start to listen, you're like, what the how is it possible to create like the counter movement of the bass line mixed in with the double melody that then splits into a harmony as it descends down and then into the claps, and it's so cool.
And then the groove changes, right? Because they have that da 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 dee da da, which is like the straight, but then it goes to the dee da 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 dee da 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 da, which is so like Latin jazz, Latin vibes to it. That is like it is. I mean, it just like once again, it builds on itself too. Like it doesn't start off smacking, but then before you can know it, you're like okay, and then by the second pass, I feel like then you start to hear this is going.
That's actually a really good point, because at first I was like, I don't know that I like this. And then the minute that the melody came in, I was like, oh. And then the minute that the percussion, like the second time repeated, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm here. I'm with it. You know,
I'm in it. That's right.
It's like interesting how you have to like sit into it.
Right. Absolutely.
I liked that one a lot, actually. Let's check out the special stage.
This is one that like, you know, when you get to a checkpoint and there's stars spinning, you can jump into it, and then you go to this like special stage. And I'll tell you a story about this after we hear it.
You know, that entire time I was listening to that bass line is absolutely madness. And then what's crazy is that you get the, first of all, I find it really interesting that the da 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 and then it gets higher, and you're just like, whoa. And, you know, you just sort of like take off almost, but it has like this spinning quality to it, which I thought was really interesting.
And it's funny you say that, because like the world feels like it's spinning when you play this map. It's like you're like running down a half pipe, you know, trying to collect as much as you can, and then there's like obstacles in the way, and like and it just feels like absolute insanity. So this bass line that has it's a very common like black church bass line when people get excited in church. So one time I remember there was a band. I went to a church, and the band was about my age, and we were in college. And they added this song to the church music. And no, like if you didn't know it, you wouldn't have picked up on it. But they're doing a and the keyboard player went da 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 da.
Are you serious?
And I was like, what? And so of course, you know, I went to the band afterwards. We were in Chicago. I went to the band, and he was like, dude, nobody gets that. He was like, I'm glad you caught it. I was like, of course I caught it. That was amazing.
That's awesome.
It's
But
like,
again,
like
it goes to
it's
show,
relentless
right?
energy.
Yeah, and like not only does that represent Sonic / Tails, but I think also too, like I mean, it's actually fascinating to think that it can represent so many other things, like whether you can, and also you can extrapolate it and put it in a church sequence or like whatever, you know, and it's like a totally appropriate because it's just energy, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And it's just this like driving force of like never ending, but also the like the perfect, like I think the melody kind of jumps, like it always lands on, you know, the perfect intervals, which feels very like Olympian. You know what I mean? It feels very like
yeah,
like the horns.
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like you know, like Chariots of Fire kind of deal. You know what,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That I'm like you feel the rate, and it feels like a race, but it feels like a race with some high stakes. You know?
I love that you could sit down and like look at this music and you could analyze this for like an hour if you wanted to, and like find like tons of, like we're just like talking about how it feels and like talking about it superficially, but like if you wanted to take a score and like really like deep dive into this, like it could take you days, you know. It's so interesting.
Absolutely. I don't think any of this, like I don't think this is any more or less, it's just different. I don't think this is any more or less complex than analyzing Mozart or Handel. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like,
yeah,
because like even from the very beginning, you talk about feels and vibes or whatever, but if you start it over, you get this almost this like whole tone, which we always associate with like dream sequences or whatever. It's just like ya da 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 da, and that never comes back. It just happens at the beginning, which I think starts. It's like it's like taking you into a new world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which because you get the horns to start ba da 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 dee, da 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 da, and then you get those things going off, and then you're in the world. You know what I mean? It's like it's like come on, man. And like I said,
That's
for
so
a
cool.
16-bit game in like '93, this was ahead of the curve. It might even have been '92 actually, but like this was ahead of the curve.
I mean, it feels like it. It definitely feels more advanced than a lot of the other stuff that's out at that point. You know, I mean, like, yeah, there's other things. I mean, obviously, like, I think around this time, Street Fighter 2 and, like, other stuff like that. But, I mean, in terms of, like, the real, like, narrative drive of music, I really, I mean, obviously, video games has always done that. But I feel like here it's really, like, pushing it forward. I mean, not to glaze on Sonic too hard, but, I mean, I do think that, like, there's just something amazing about it that I'm really impressed by every time I listen to it.
Like you said, I'm not necessarily trying to glaze on Sonic, but you got to like the battle between the console war was real, you know. And
at that point,
they were a real, like, I think Genesis might have slightly was above SNES for a little bit, you know what I mean, and then they fell off. But like at this point, if you would have asked most of the world, like, are you a Mario or a Sonic person, it was a real debate. Like it was like people were really Apple and Android on that thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like they were like in there. So I really do feel like that they were pushing the envelope and they were really trying to like
evolve and stuff.
Throw the whole house at Sonic. You know, he was the flagship guy.
I know, we have to remember that. You know, like who Sega, Sonic. You know what I mean?
That's it.
Yeah,
that's it. That's like his, like I mean, people had hats and T-shirts and shoes. Yeah, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. I'm glad we're at the age that we are, but like to be like slightly older and experiencing it must have been so cool. Like to be like 13, 14, 15 and like I don't know if we're the same age, but like being a core millennial with like the birth of like the PlayStation and like being like an early adopter of that and like
100%.
You know, I mean there was one kid in high school that like middle school always seemed to get the latest console, and I remember when the Dreamcast came out and I was like, how's this guy already have a freaking Dreamcast? It just came out. Yeah. Meanwhile, I had to wait like 6 months to a year to like get it, you know, and I was like, man, I'm pissed. Like I remember I got the PlayStation and it was like the biggest deal because it had been out for like a year already or whatever, and you know, it's so. Anyway, let's check out Wing Fortress Zone. This one sounds fun. Wow. That one's a real one.
Yeah. So it's like, is this my favorite song in the game? Absolutely not. But we were talking about the vibe when we were chatting about getting together on this. I was like, this was such a like, they took a shot at like trying to make it this like epic, like like you're climbing into the thing, you know, getting onto the ship or whatever. But then that little like, they like timed it so well that like if you play the game the way they want you to play it, you reach that first like kind of hard obstacle right about the time that happens, and it's like, oh damn, like how how they know? I remember thinking, how they know I was gonna hit that when I hit it? You know what I mean? And the tension builds like through very classical, like harmonic structure. I feel like it's universally understood musical tension. You know what I mean?
Release,
yeah. It's like I just felt like even taking a shot that way, they were trying to tell the story of this without cutscenes, without reading a ton of like, this is, you know, like, you remember back in the day when you had to like read all the like pop-up stuff like on the old like X-Men games, and it was like 15 minutes of text bubbles. Without doing that, they're telling a story through this music. Is it a banger? Absolutely not. But like, it is a storytelling device, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like, that's like the definition of programmatic music, isn't it? I mean, that's it. What's really cool is that like it really does start off too like that, like heralding the king and the queen, that march. And then actually I heard something really interesting. There's like a shift in dissonance where we're passing through from the like tension section into the like sort of the triumph of this king and queen or this entity, and then suddenly we're positive again. But it like in order to get through it, it has to move through this particular like clash of two notes to get to the other side. And I find that so cool because it's like, yeah, you're right, it's not a banger at all. But what's cool about it is that it like it's like a legitimate like piece of classical music in Sonic. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. I was like, geez, like, just hit all the genres, why don't you? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I know, right? In every single game, it's like
there's always a moment where you're like, well, this is nice.
I'm getting an education by listening to this.
Exactly.
Let's go to Sky Chase Zone because this one I'm low key hyped for. What a mood. Oh, man. I love slow Sonic songs, bro. I love slow Sonic songs.
It's a vibe. This is the one I was talking about earlier where I was saying, like, like it has no urgency to it, but it still has forward motion. But it's just a vibe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fun fact, this was the ringtone I used for my wife when we were dating. So she would call, and I would get that yada-do, yada-do. Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, that's my girl.
That's one of my favorite songs I've listened to thus far. I mean, like the energy in it, you're right, it is a vibe, but also too, like just looking at it a little bit, like if we isolate it slightly, like I love the thing that really sticks out is ba-da-da-dum, ba-da-da, da-da-da, and then it went. Dum dum da ro rum da ro ro.
Yeah.
And we have that. First of all, we have that in classical music, but we also have it's just like a the church bells. You know,
exactly.
So peaceful.
And then they flip it in the next section where the da 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 goes to the background, but faster. Ba dum da dum be dum, and then
and
then
I love that
flips
too.
To that, and it's like, oh, come on. And I feel like first of all, the snare and the kick sound incredible. Whoever mixed that, like, it has such a pop to it, which is great. But also, they got this like almost French horn sound. You know what I mean? In the like, so you have the like, and the answer is like, which is almost like a flugelhorn or French horn, kind of like warm horn sound versus the kind of like brassy sound that I'm used to having throughout the game up to this point. You know what I mean? Like, it was all very like, if you were talking mixes, it was all like super in the highs, and this was all in the mids. You know what I mean? You get this like this really like warm sound that is so vibing.
There's also an accordion at one point near the middle beginning that I was like, is that an accordion? It's like super in the background. But I was like, damn, this is like, you know, like an afternoon tea or an afternoon glass of wine in Italy, you know?
Yeah.
Like, just like chilling, eating some snacks, and just like, I mean, it's funny to hear that in a Sonic game. And I think like really not shying away from slow momentum. It's interesting how tempo, you know, because like the rhythm is still pretty, it moves.
Yeah.
But tempo-wise, it's pulled back, and I think it's interesting to like interplay tempo with rhythm and have something still forward moving, but tempo laid back.
Yeah. There's forward motion, but it doesn't have this same kind of like frantic urgency that you have throughout the game, which is kind of nice. Like, because remember, we didn't have save. Remember, kids, you couldn't save back then, and so like you just have to like start from the beginning and just beat it. And so this was nice, you know, like 2/3 of the way through to be like, all right, I got this map, I got to do it. It's not super stressful. It's not easy, but like nothing's chasing me. I
don't feel like I have to get to point B.
Yeah, and the music isn't stressing me out. You know, like it was very, very, very good track.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that with me. I'm gonna keep that one in my back pocket. I want to hear if there's any remixes of it too. I want to hear some like modernizations of it.
There have to be. Oh, that's a good.
I'm sure. Metropolis Zone. All right, I'm here for it. Man, that guitar is so wild. You know what it sounds? It sounds like a truck going by, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I'm unfamiliar with how you program music in a like a 16-bit video game, but they have to spend a lot of time getting these sounds right because it sounds like a bending guitar. Like You know what I mean? With even the vibrato on the guitar string, it's like, oh, it's so funky.
It sounds like something straight out of like the actual time period that you would hear that into, which is really fun. But also making it feel like you're in a cityscape. That's the crazy part. Like how do you create something that's so like uniquely like it both describes an actual like location, like a city, and also tune into a sound style that actually existed, you know?
Right. Absolutely.
It's so
nailed it, Marco. And I think you have this those little like record scratches. It's like super subtle, like from the beginning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is like immediately for me, like puts me back in the early 90s, late 80s, Run DMC, Public Enemy, like, you know what I mean? Like,
jump,
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what that song is that I just sang. Go down and jump, boom, boom, boom.
That's that's Van Halen. Same vibe, because you get those same like open chords.
Yeah.
And then you get that chromatic like falling. Oh yeah, this song was cool. And this was later on in the game. It was like a cityscape, and it was complicated, and it felt almost like you're like a revisit of Chemical Plant, but like different. You know what I mean? Like a different like. It's still like very metallic and very like non-earthy, whatever that vibe is that they got back to here, which I think was like they nailed it.
It's like rounding a corner and knowing that you're almost done with the game, but they still got to push you with some challenge, so they throw in like a cityscape to like kind of like the big hump before you like kind of taper off. Again, we could do deep analysis, but also just like hearing them and like talking about them, it's like so fun on its own, because like there's so much to just enjoy about them, you know what I mean? Like they don't necessarily require like what key signature was this in, and like what rhythmic you know, like there's like, man, I love this because this and this, you know, it's such a fun thing to be able to do, and more people should do it, you know.
I agree. I was just gonna say, like, the greatest pieces of art, whether it be video game music, opera, symphonies, funk, pop, jazz, whatever, they make you feel something, and they make you like connect with it, and you don't always know why. One of my favorite things to do is to be kind of incognito in opera audiences and just like talk to the people around me, like people that don't know that I'm a singer too. And I'm like, hey, so what do you think was going on? And I just saw Tosca recently, and it was this guy's first opera, and he was like, man, he first of all, he didn't know that the subtitles were on his chair, because he was like looking to the left and the right, and they like he couldn't see that they were working. So he was just like, I guess he's like, I don't know what they were singing about, but man, I wanted to cry. And that's, you know what I mean? And like, and that's what it's kind of all about, right? You know what I mean? Like, not making people cry, but making people feel something. And like in that moment, he felt something. You know, of course I helped him out. I was like, hey, for the next act, push this button.
Push this button right here. Are you doing covering at the Met and stuff?
Not this season. I was there for, I was in New York rehearsing for a New York Festival of Song with Steve Blyer. And so I had some friends in those shows, so I popped over and got a chance to check them out. And so it was nice. I was at the Met 2 seasons ago, and then I've been in Europe for like 5 years. So like now
I remember that. Yeah, I remember
slowly moving back over to the States and like getting back over here. Kids got
but you must have got your feet real wet in Germany. You must have sang everything under the sun.
Man, they put you through the ringer over there. Like they invented the Fox system only to ignore it.
Oh God!
A buddy of mine, if you're an opera person, in 5 days, he sang a performance of Don Jose from Carmen. He sang Duke from Rigoletto, and he sang Nemorino on Monday night.
Whoa.
And I was like, bro, that is a crazy 5-day stretch. And he closed with the Nemorino. That was the one.
I can't believe that. I sang one Nemorino,
and
I needed a year to recover from that.
Exactly. And I was like, you coming off like it got progressively higher as the week went on. He started with Jose, and then he went to Rigoletto, and then he went with it. I was like, yo, that's a heck of a weekend, buddy. And that was like Thursday to Monday kind of deal.
And then people don't really realize how difficult. I mean, like, you know, you sing an opera, for those of you that don't know, you sing an opera, and then every time, like, it's different the way you put it in your voice, like the way you rehearse it, the way you feel it, the way it functions functionally is different each opera. So it's not like you're an opera singer and then everything is the same. Like, I mean, there you literally feel the push of the, you know, especially for us, we're higher voice males, so we feel the pressure and the push of the notes and stuff up against the throat as we're climbing up into the upper register and stuff, or especially when we're sitting in that middle zone called the passaggio between the lower and the higher. I haven't like sung. I mean, I sing sometimes on the channel, but I haven't like sung. The other day, I think I sang like Recondita Armonia just to see if I still got it. And like, man, my B flats are starting to sprout real rough. Like, because I'm always talking in the mic, so like I'm all on my vocal fry. You can hear it right now. I'm like,
listen. Give yourself 45 minutes in the practice room and then try it again. Listen, I know what them high notes sound like. Sound like a brick house. I know that, dude. Marco's high notes are crazy. Marco's high notes are crazy, y'all. Crazy.
Oh man, that's sweet of you, Chaz. It's been a minute. Sometimes I do sometimes miss it, but I'll never forget my last gig. Not to get sidetracked, but my last gig was Macbeth, and I had taken like 6 weeks to like a couple months off, and I went and I like practiced really hard for a week, and then I went and we did our first week of rehearsal, and I was like, holy shit, I'm back. And I was like, you know, channel, you know what I mean? Like, but I sometimes Ophelia, don't crack.
Those back-to-back,
you know, that last section too. Oh my god, nothing like a la fleur que tu m'as.
Starting right there, starting on that F is like,
oh god, it's brutal.
And especially in the role after you just got done doing all that screaming. Carmen!
Have you ever done the shorter version? The Tragédie de Carmen?
The Tragedy? No, I've never done Tragedy.
I did it in grad school, and that thing is a trip because you get like 90 minutes and you're on stage the entire time. Sheesh. And so you just like warm down. You're just warming down the entire, and you're just like, no, Jesus, no, I can't.
Yeah.
And you know, you sing the duet with her, and then basically you're right into the aria. It's weird. The pacing's okay because of the way that it's cut up, but Tragedy is a cool show. But yeah, anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let's move on.
Sidetrack. Let's go. Opera nerds.
Sidetrack. I started talking about opera. That's what happens. Let's go to Casino Night Zone. Oh, there's two of them. I'm excited. I think I've heard this one.
Yeah, this one you probably heard.
when I think of Casino Night, I wouldn't think of that sound. Like, that's not the sound. I would think, like, bright lights, big city, you know, but this one's more like, it has this, like, very vaudevillian. I suppose that makes sense, but it's very like ba ba da dum ba dum boom 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 ba da ba da. Why do you think that that's like the soundscape?
Okay, so I think that there are two types of Vegases. There's the Vegas we grew up with, and the Vegas our parents grew up with. And I think the Vegas we grew up with is like Vegas. Whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Stays in Vegas, yeah.
And our parents' Vegas was like Sinatra past his prime, and Elvis past his prime, and I feel like they tried to get to that, like, hey, tip your waitresses, ya da 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 ya da da, hey,
like Rat Pack style,
Rat Pack style Vegas, you know what I mean? Because they got those like screaming horns with the like, you know what I mean? It's very like big bandy with the like artificial vibrato. And like this like swing thing on it. I don't know if you watch Ted Lasso, but I keep picturing Higgins with his like upright bass.
Yeah. I love Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
Talk about a show make you cry. Oh,
I know, right? I know, right? We need Ted Lasso to like do like a public speech for the planet right now. Like Ted Lasso can inspire. You know, like let's get a Ted Lasso halftime speech going. You know,
you're right though. I think like that vibe is really there, and I didn't think about that, but it's true. Like it's like, hey, welcome to Vegas. Yeah, welcome to casino night. And the eyebrows are going. And it's All right, we're chilling. Yeah. We're vibing with Vegas, you know? But yeah, you're right. Like, I mean, and two, like, again, so much wonderful bass in every one of these tracks, 100%. Actually. And it's all different, too. That's the crazy part is that, like, it's, you know what's a miracle is that, like, they somehow created multiple different themes they created different themes for different areas, but then it's still, now obviously the limitations of sound, but, like, they still managed to sound cohesive within the realm of Sonic 2, which is really interesting to me.
It still sounds very much so like it belongs together.
Yeah, and sometimes it can be oversaturated or there's too much of it and then it doesn't work. But yet somehow all of these feel like they're a part of a whole, which is really impressive.
And I mean that's why I think it was, you know, I hope your viewers aren't like, geez guys, you're talking about the same game. But like sometimes it's nice to like see the like cohesion and be like, look at what they did at this point in time. Like there's a lot of work to put this together like this, and to have them all sound good and B all sound like they go together. You know what I mean?
Well, especially with the sound, the sound font and the sound chip, like this style. You know, we don't benefit from like full orchestration or from MIDI. Like MIDI, yes, but MIDI, point being that like this particular soundscape, this is not easy to like produce something that like sounds cohesive. Like, you know, yes, the sound chip sounds the same, but like to then create multiple styles within that sound chip and yet still have it be a part of a larger whole is I mean, it's super interesting.
And now games are 56, 120, 130 gigabytes, you know, files. Yeah. So like people are winning Grammys for video game orchestration and stuff now. Yeah. And to think that they were doing like this complicated of a stuff with as limited of the equipment as they had back then, I'm like, that's why I say it changed the way I looked at it, because I was like, no, the music can be good. It doesn't have to be just like in the background. It doesn't have to be like, you know what I mean, just like secondhand, like nobody's thinking about it. It can be good.
Nor should it be secondhand, and that's the real problem too.
Exactly.
Is that, like, you know, trying to get people to understand like this is important. Man, all right, let's go to my favorite, Emerald Hill Zone.
We got two more. I figure we close on the hit and then a bonus track.
You know, a little Green Hill Zone does pop up in there.
It does. There's like a you know what I mean? It's kind of and those opening horns. It's a it's like, you know.
Yeah.
It gives you it gives you the like the signature vibe, you know, because this was the opening. This is the opening map, stage, or whatever for Sonic 2. So I think they wanted to kind of like give you that vibe. But this is that thing that have you ever heard that saying where people talk about Mozart? Pianists say this a lot, where they're like, Mozart is too easy for kids and too hard for adults. It's like,
but I love that phrase.
it's like Mozart for a kid. They sit down and they're like, oh sure, boom, 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 ba-da-dum. But then adult pianists are like, man, Mozart is hard. Like the discipline of it to like make it sound good, and it's way more complicated than you think, and you can't overplay in the middle voices, and you can't pound on the middle. That's what this song is to me, where it's like, it sounds so simple, but then it is so musically complicated. Like that bass line is constantly moving. It's like, what is happening? And then you have this like chromatic line that's going down in the middle voices, but it changes voices, so it's like the pitch, like it's jumping octaves, but it's always going down, but sometimes it sounds like it's going up. It's like, it's so good
melodically too, like ba-dum, 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 ba-da-ba-ba-da, ba-da-bum, ba-dum, bum, 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 and then the bass takes over. Also, something I thought was really cool is that we actually have that section where we're like, the horn is really strong, and then we pivot and we pull back actually, and then we're like da, 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 da. I forget what the actual like melody is, but yeah, that. Yeah, and it like pulls away from that in your face horn. And I found that was also really interesting because, again, like, you don't have to do that. Technically, you don't have to write it that way. So, like, you could just write it the same way the whole time, and it would be fine because it's still following a melodic pattern. It's interesting, whatever. But instead, we pull back and we shift, and we have like a phase 2, like a B in
like a B
this,
section.
and then we come back to an A. It's like what? Like that's neat.
It's neat, man, and it feels. This song always feels so like happy and inviting, and just kind of like, you know, you blow on the cartridge, you put the thing in, it goes, Sega, let's go. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's so like, everyone welcome to the game. It's just so happy. I can hear all the like jumping noises and ring sounds in my own head as I listen to it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? 'Cause from the years of playing it. And I just feel like it's just a joyful like vibe. It's
still not as good as Green Hill Zone. I love Green Hill Zone.
The original Green Hill Zone is still like A1. But Emerald Hill Zone is a nice like homage evolution kind of situation.
Yeah. It borrows and evolves. Yes, I would agree. I would agree. Well, so we're gonna check out Casino Night Zone 2. What's 2P? Player 2?
So this game was so dope that when you went to 2-player mode, they only had like 4 maps for you to race, you know?
Uh-huh.
But they had different versions of those maps with different songs.
Oh.
So this is the 2-player version of Casino Night that it is not at all the other Casino Night. And it's so... Just check it out. Just check it out.
There's a bit of a taunting in there, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I'ma beat you.
I'm gonna beat you. And you got the the double melodies again that you have this, and then the call and response, and they're all funky lines.
Yeah. Love the double harmony too, huh?
It's so good.
Cool. I love that it goes up like that in the it feels like it's in thirds. I'm not positive, but after doing it, so we basically repeat it 4 times, but it's like so fun. And then the bass line is crazy. I think that's what I've really learned about Sonic 2 is the bass line is absolutely mental.
It's always gonna slap. Boom, 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 boom. and the thing is, like, it has no reason to be this funky. And like, first of all, if they would have just given the same music as the other before, no one would complain about it. But they gave you a completely different track, which gives you a completely different like feeling playing through a versus mode, because this was in the versus mode. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you could do the co-op where one was Sonic and one was Tails, and you guys play through the game. Or you could do this versus, and the versus just has a completely different funk and feel that, like you said, it was kind of taunting, but kind of co-op-y. It's just slapping.
I like that it wasn't so intense where you felt like it was like a duel with your friend. You know what I mean? There was like there's a playfulness in it that really carries it through, which is really fun.
Absolutely.
Usually I ask people that come on, what they learned from this, but I suppose since you're showing me.
So Marco, what did you learn from this Sonic 2 masterclass we just went through here?
What I'm really picking up, and this was the first time I've really dove into a lot of the classic soundscapes, and I have to say, like, this is Sonic. Like, the thing that I'm really picking up from this is the fact that, like, this is such a historical, like, meaningful, like, not shallow, like, it's very deep. It's actually like weirdly thought-provoking if you allow it to be, right? Like,
Absolutely.
it's not kiddish. And I think, like, a lot of times we get into this conversation, well, is it beeps and boops still? Or like, what beeps and boops? And it's like, but like, this is beeps and boops, but like, this is like pure music in the most purest way possible. And all of it's a vibe, and all of it's a mood, and all of it has that little tongue-in-cheek, like, Sonic smile to it, and it's a delight. And I'm there's so much more Sonic for me to explore, and I'm really grateful for it, because the musical language of Sonic feels very, very mature, and also feels very expansive, because we've had how many 30 years of Sonic now. Like, that's so much music.
It's a lot of music, and I think it's important to remember, going to the like classicness of this, that there are 2 game franchises that I feel like really took off with the second installment. One was Street Fighter 2. Like, Street Fighter 2 is the one that really like set it off. And I think Sonic 2, like, the first Sonic was very good. Like, I'm not saying that it wasn't very good, but I think Sonic 2 is pretty universally recognized as, like, that was the best Sonic game ever. You know what I mean? Like, there's been some great ones. There was that second one on Dreamcast that was also really good, too. I want to say it was Sonic Adventure, maybe? Or Sonic Adventure... Oh, dude, that game was crazy good. But Sonic 2 was, like, the first time you could, like, bend down and spin. And I really think that they, like, took what they did well in the first game and added just enough new to it that it wasn't overwhelming for people. It was still mostly run and jump, but there was a little bit of something extra. And I think they did the same thing with this music. Like, the music is so, like, crucial to each map, and it really changed. Like, we've talked about jazz, we've talked about like salsa, we've talked about funk, we've talked about like mysticism, we've talked about the relaxed, almost like smooth jazz sky chase. You know what I mean? Like,
love sky chase.
We hit a little bit of everything. You know what I mean? And it's like, and this was all in a like 90-minute playthrough of a game.
No, I think that's really impressive. And again, and all of it somehow managed to. I know it looks like my eyes are closed there, but watch this not lag, and I'm just talking about something that no one else sees. My camera was lagging. Hopefully,
the camera was lagging on. You know, I'm backing my boy on this one.
But and it manages to be a cohesive unit, and that's really the most impressive thing to me is that like we still retain the sonic sound, which is just so good. And I think that that's also continued because you know we get it in Sonic Generations, obviously, which is a celebration of other Sonic games. But like Sonic Generations is amazing, and even that, which is a menagerie of different Sonic games levels, still manages to sound like Sonic.
Like Sonic, that's right.
And that includes rock. It includes, whatever, all sorts of different... if you haven't played it yet, Sonic Generations X Shadow Generations, it just came out, is super good.
I haven't played it. I don't know if you missed that part from the earlier in the podcast. I have 3 kids.
Well, you better take them to see Sonic 3.
Yeah,
Shadow.
You know, my son is like all over the Sonic movie. He loves Sonic. He was Sonic for Halloween this year, actually. So like, it lives on, man. It lives on.
That's awesome. Well, listen, Chaz, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you sharing with me. Man. This rarely happens where someone comes on and teaches me something and lets me listen to something for the first time. So I'm really grateful to have been on the other side of this puppy and listen to something. So
anytime. If you want to show me something I've never heard, I'm happy to jump back on one day. Let me know, and I'll like fresh ears to you. With a better connection, I'll go somewhere else.
When's the last time you listened to a video game soundtrack?
Like really listen to one? Dude, it's been a long time. I'm going to say...
So there's like stuff you might not know.
Oh, for sure. I'm going to say like Skyrim and Oblivion. You know what I mean?
Was the last time you
dove into the soundtrack? That was the last time that I was like, just listen to the score. So there's definitely stuff out there that I'm
there's room. We'll get you on. That'd be fun.
That'd be fun.
And thanks everybody for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. All you Sonic fans, hopefully you're feeling satisfied listening to Sonic 2. Stay tuned for more. There's definitely going to be a playthrough of Sonic Mania. Oh, finishing Sonic Mania, Sonic Colors, and Sonic Unleashed. I'm really excited about Sonic Unleashed, actually. I don't know if you've heard any music from Sonic Unleashed, but maybe I'll have you on and teach you some Sonic music. I don't know if you can keep
that'd be great. That'd be great. That'd be
fun. Thanks a ton, everybody, and we'll see you later. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys.